stop and think what they have in common. They're all strong individuals, and they don't really follow usually the current style of architecture that's being practiced. They usually seek out their own, and they follow that, whether it's new or old. And they basically all work alone. That's another characteristic. Did I say they were strong individuals? That's almost when you work alone, you have to be a strong individual. So Ken Kellogg is, this is the second time he's come to our school, and this is about the second attendance, the same number. He's quite upset at this, but this is what we have to offer on the sort of the alternative level of the school. So Ken has done this chart house out on the Pacific Coast Highway, you're all familiar with, and also has done some things in Hawaii and down in San Diego. I'd like to just go over these other speakers so you could next week be enlightened and tell others to come. Jim Hull works with Hubbell in Westwood Village. He started that, he and his wife started that whole process of manufacturing furniture from sonotubes. Sort of the philosophy was to create low-cost furniture. He was trained as an architect. They took his master's somewhere back east at one of the big schools, and then he went into furniture design. I think he has his dreams of the future of going into complete building systems, so he's approaching it in a different way. Jim Hubbell, I would classify as sort of the Gaudi of the
let's just get right into it, and as I go through it, if you have any questions, please ask them, and I'll try to get into a little bit of the philosophy if I can, and if not, we'll see how it goes at the end. Is that focused? Okay. My last school I ended up with Berkeley, and after I quit there, I had previously designed a house in San Diego in the Mission Beach area, and it was 4 days under construction. Fortunately, I was able to come right out of school and go right on the one of my houses and work. This house is my first house. I designed it, I think I was around 23 years old. It's what I consider an emulation of Frank Lloyd Wright. At the time, I was very taken with Wright. I didn't break away from that direct influence and probably till '62 when I did the house in Hawaii. It's a very strong statement. That's probably what Mission Beach needed. In nature, as you know, the triangular grid plan, which is 1959 for my mother and father-in-law. This is another Frank Lloyd Wright emulation, and which I thought was legitimate at the time. Jim Hubbell, by the way, let's turn back to that. Jim Hubbell, which you'll see next week, I think this goes backwards, did the sculpture in the ceiling there. I became friends with Jim in about 1959. Glazed tile from Tecate. It's set in a canyon. It's a house where the forms, of course, fluid forms from one room to the other. Again, the free-form plan where no room is a single identity in itself. It functions as a whole. This is a fluid form plan developed maybe, so say, for a canyon or something where various grottos in a hill. This would fit in that type of area. No, that wasn't built, just an idea. Jim Hubbell, this is Jim Hubbell stained glass. Again, in nature. This is a project I designed, believe it or not, for Jim Hubbell's mother in Rancho Santa Fe. Unfortunately, she died of cancer at the time. This is a wedding dress shop. She was into selling ready dresses. Jim was going to do the stained glass and the sculpture in the center, and we were going to form this out of earth. This is my house before I worked it over in the middle 60s, and it's on a very tight lot. And the wall functions on a size 8-foot variance. We had to get the ridge about 18 inches up, hits the line of the car and the bumper height. And the sloping out brick works with the street sweeper that comes down the street. So it's all planned for that particular situation. I used packing crate lumber, Philippine mahogany, bender boards, this type of thing, and threw it together with a loft in the upper right. This is a design I did for a mountainside in Hodges, not built. Concrete glass. This is for Idlewild. It went all the way to working drawings and bid out. Unfortunately, in that area, the lending institutions did not loan enough money for that house. It wasn't that expensive at the time comparatively to other projects in the area, but they didn't loan over $50,000. That bid out to $70,000. This project is a combination of Jim Hubbell and myself. This is in the Mount Helix area of San Diego. I did the pool and basically a lot of the walls. Jim came in with sculpture and rails and this type of thing, and we blended together very well, I think, where you cannot tell where one left off and the other started. This site was a situation where they wanted a pool. No pool contractor would do it, of course. It was between two boulders in front, and we wedged the pool between them. Created a helical slide, and there are the boulders. Nobody knew how far down they went, and of course, taking a chance when you're doing that sort of thing. We didn't have a geological report on it. The tall elements there are Jim Hubbell put those in. Their lights, their fountains, and just sculpture. I'm going too fast for you? Sorry. Of course, they have children, and the slide functions quite well for this. Again, in nature, in plan, this particular project was designed for a growth center named Kairos in Rancho Santa Fe at the time. Unfortunately, it folded. It was never built. This is a lecture area. This is all underground, skylight, concrete roof formed, and various rooms and beds will look out onto the lecture area. And of course, you know what this is. This is a house that was designed for a Hungarian gentleman, civil engineer. Apparently, he had ideas of extensive form of freedom and wanted a very large, fantastic house. Certainly a high degree of opulence. He wanted to build it with plastic forms in his factory. He had a gun mount. The top part was to rotate. It was 7,000 square feet. 2 ramps. We'd modify golf carts, this type of thing, to bring the groceries up. And it was on the edge of a mountain. He was never started. He would get a little money, and I told him that that was not enough money to even start this house, and we never got off the ground. Maybe we will someday. He's an inventor, and maybe something will happen. This is a house designed for back of Del Mar. This was not built. It was conceived for a lot there. Never first. This was a restaurant designed for Sacramento, city of Folsom. The project dropped in economic crunch. We didn't go ahead with the project. It was going to be corten steel on the roof. It's across from the Folsom River, the American River, across from the city of Folsom restoration site. And that is the bridge that goes to the right there, over that area. This is a project. I was involved in a poverty nonprofit corporation where we're seeking to do inexpensive housing and concrete for, let's say this project in particular was for in a colonial in Tijuana. It didn't work in a sense that the social attitude was not right for a house that seemed different than the conservatism which goes along with poverty. It's very difficult to do that. It's a very touchy situation. This house is pending. It's for Topanga Canyon with earth roof. This just an idea for forms within mountain sites. This was an owner-builder project. Took an existing house and redid it. This particular item in front is a saw texture, a bandsaw, and I think he picked that up for $50, delivered, which was pretty nice. These are the details. He did it all himself. Worked from beginning, put poles in the house. This is a chart house and restaurant in Santa Barbara. It was done by the lowest bidder, and I guess they gave me an award or something for it, and that was interesting. 12-foot skylight inside. When we get more into houses, I'm legally obligated to not say the names of the owners or the addresses, and if you do see any of the houses, I'm advised on some of them, please do not approach them because of invasion of rights of privacy. This is the construction of the Malibu Chart House restaurant. This is the entrance, the waterfall, a identity with uniqueness, and with the entrance. This again part of the project of the poverty project. It's just some more ideas for that. This is a remodel, except that when we remodeled, we did a little bit more than remodel. It's in Pacific Beach. Jim Hubbell, we had Jim Hubbell do the stained glass in the bathroom area. This is a juice bar for Mike Henson, a surfer who was in the endless summer. This is in La Jolla. These are bender boards. And the bar and everything's formed. This particular house in La Jolla, this is underground. These particular clients are a combination of the romantic and classic. The underground, the low silhouette being the romantic and the classic. The vertical lines and the austerity of the bleakness or the vertical lines of the columns, I guess. Jim Hubbell did the fountain river across the entrance into another fountain, which you can't see. Jim did another sculpture there. The door pivots off center, that's out of context. The rocks came from the desert. They're all pulled in by trucks. They're not something you buy down the local rock place. We have a particular place called Hazard Products in San Diego where most of the rock and things are bought. Skylights, there's 5 skylights in the area. It's, again, opulent. The floors are made out of 2x6 cut-off Douglas fir. It's not particularly my style of house personally. The fireplace is marble, and the front of the fireplaces are walnut. And the kitchen functions very well. It's glassed maple boards which are bent for the curves. This is design. The colors I did not choose, but the design I had participated in. And the pond outside, and there's a plant on the outside. These are early pictures. And in the shower. We have 3 trays. So any questions so far? Or no? That's around 4,500 square feet. A little bit large.
You get at all discouraged or depressed when so many of the projects you propose don't get carried out and actually built?
Well, you learn to live with that, I guess. You have to. You want it? Yeah, did you have the other one there? Okay. Yeah, you live with that. This was a remodel. I don't have a before shot, but it's a drastic change. It's on a typical lot with, the 4-foot side or 3-foot side property setbacks, and so I've devised a way to open up the sides of the house, and then you get a variance for 8-foot wall, and you let the house utilize the entire space on the lot in your house. Then the bigger feeling, you get a better space out of it. So this is what we've been doing. This is a gate, La Jolla. It's a very interesting gate to build. A 3-dimensional gate, and it pivots, and the owner participated in the workings of the gate, and it swings back. It's on a pulley, and the 2 cylinders that are in top of the picture underneath the arch, one is a speaker and the other one's a light. This is a feeling of that particular house. I feel that I have one of the best carpenters working for me in this side of the Mississippi.
You design the interior?
Oh yeah, everything. He cuts these bookshelves and slices a rectangular hole through these vertical beams so that you cannot tell that it has gone through the beam in order to get these cantilever. These particular beams, the owner investigated a process whereby you can clean dirty redwood with trisodium phosphate and oxalic acid, and it comes out as beautiful wood. You can take the worst wood and take the black stains, the sunburned stains, and that process will do it. Intimate spaces, small library, books. This particular brick is handmade brick that they've been making for the last few thousand years, just like they made it in Europe and anywhere. They go out and find a clay pit and take a hoe and start beating it with water and form the brick and cast them. You get this brick from Takati. Okay, this particular house here is for a surfboard builder. Well, I wasn't going to say a name, but here's a name. Larry Gordon of Gordon and Smith Surfboards wanted a house that resembled the feeling of a wave and surfing and curves and this type of thing. He had a lot chosen. I didn't have that much to do with choosing the lot, but we did what we could in a situation. And then we started designing. Of course, we're starting to, he wanted the house open up, and we drilled the holes for telephone poles. And took the seismic loads into telephone poles so we could open up the house and be a lot of, pretty much glass and patios and greenery on the sides. This is the fireplace footings. We put speakers underneath the hearth of the fireplace footings. This is the forms completed. I usually put tin cans on the rebar because they become a little dangerous on the job. Work from beginning to end. I'm there, 3 times a week, sometimes 4. These are the poles that came from Los Angeles. They're treated. This is the neighborhood, and the neighbors were wondering what was going on at this time. Then they were still wondering, but it looked a little better. And it was difficult to find where exactly everything is. This was a skew plan, a few paralleling walls. Used the Mexican brick again, and it came from the inside to the outside and developed a continuous space. All the walls had to be waterproof behind, drain tiled. It was a long process. We started developing, we got the pre-lam beams up, and then we started developing our own lam beams on the curves. Bending, we didn't really know how we were going to do it or what we were going to do exactly, but I showed something on the plans when we got to it that we did it the way we could do it. And so we started. As soon as we get to the start here, well, before we get to that, we have some forms for the fireplace. And then we started doing the thing with the curves. Very difficult. First thing anybody does when they get the fireplace so that you can build a fire, and they do so, see if the thing works. The center 2 beams we made in a job, and the size we made in a job. The other beams that go across are pre-lams from factory. This house took several years to build. That was a general idea there. They're still finishing off little bits of it here and there as the money comes in. This is the basic plan. It's hard to read. And this is the working drawing of the floor plan. And this is the front of the area. The fellow that took over as foreman had never really built a house before. Started as a laborer, and we developed him into a proficient carpenter. The owner helped do a lot of the brickwork. And that's the foreman's dog. And there's the brick. The bricks not only are slanted, which is a little difficult to do, they're battered. And then to put on top of that, some of the bricks are curved walls and compound curves. So it's not an easy job, but it's a worthwhile job, and it is I think, a nice separation from the other row housing in the neighborhood. Most people would say this house deserves a little better environment around it. Probably so, however, it was designed for this lot. And I think that it's an important statement for an area that is standardized to have some of this in the neighborhood. Complicated fireplace, developed it on the plan, didn't know quite how to get it together. When we got in the field, we worked it out, and it did pretty good. It came pretty close to what the plan called for. 3-dimensional. All these 4x4s for the skylight were individually cut. It was difficult to do some of the corners. We had to take 1x2. These are 2x12 rough redwood planks. I got the corners. We had to put 2 1x12s together in order to get some of the closures on the curves. This is the crew. The man on the left is George Schuff. He's a foreman. The man in the middle is Russ. The man on the second left Worked on the triangular house for mother and father-in-law, the second house you saw in 1959. This house was done recently in the 70s, took several years to build. Again, the skylight, development of the skylight, each board is cut different angle, different length. It had a little waterfall in the living room. The house is about 2,700 square feet on the right. You have the steps out of planks going in the living room. The living room would be carpet, and the couch would go on the right. Again, the outside-inside glass cutting in. Turning back from the living room, looking up, and the entry on the left in the middle section there, we're walking up on the dining room level, and then turning around again, hitting a shot of the waterfall, and then we're back up in the dining room level, laminated block floor, looking back up into the family room, and back to the kitchen, and into the kitchen. Okay, and there's the standardization around it. This is one of the difficult corners to do, and the ideas we all get really from our natural heritage. The shingles, none of this was built by a manufacturer. It was all handmade. Mostly unskilled labor built it. This is the back again. Then we'll go to tray number 3. Any questions so far? Is there anything that you'd like to hear that I'm saying, or anything you don't like that I'm saying that you don't want to hear that you'd like me to change?
Are you basically an architect, general contractor, or?
Well, I have a contracting license, but I am an architect, and I only use the license to allow individuals to seek materials a little less discount, this type of thing. So that's really what I do with it. I don't really contract as a...
So that's when you seem to have, either the people follow you around or, in your own group, keep building.
Hope not. No, I have certain people that have worked on my projects. On my projects, I have 2 people that are working on different projects now that work for me for 7, 8 years. We've never had an argument. And they're very good people. This is the breakaway. I went to Hawaii in 72. It was a very fortunate thing to be able to go over and build a project, and the client came in the middle of the project and the end of the project, and it took 14 months to build. Give you a flavor of Hawaii. This is the Kona Coast on the island of Hawaii, the largest island in the group, the most easterly island of the group. This is on Oahu. This is the windward side. This is a little bit of lava and the things that go on in Hawaii. In our particular area, we had a rainfall of 60 inches a year, and of course in certain areas of Hawaii I think it's over 200 a year, and on one of the islands. Lava tubes, waterfalls, that's the nature of Hawaii. Volcanoes, roads that disappear, things like that. That picture before is this area. This is a double exposure. I think Jim Hubbell took this one. Jim came over there for 60 days and did 60 stained glass windows. This is a heiau. This is the ceremonial platform in Hawaii. Between this and the shell, I came up with the idea for the house. This is this particular gentleman here that's helped me. We built this shack. We didn't have any water, so we pulled in the water thingamajig on the right, and the military M37, I guess, or M38 or whatever it is on the left. That's Bill Slatton. Bill Slatton happens to be 3 years Taliesin. He's a welder, and he left the day Wright died. Remember, this is 1962. You dig in the ground here, you'll find lava about 6 inches, maybe 12 inches underneath. So he just cleared the brush away, didn't really use a footing, and just keyed everything right in and just went direct. And some of these walls here, we brought the walks in about 300 feet around radius of the site, indigenous material. This wall is 12 feet tall. Those are 4 by 8 pieces of plywood on the right. We put the plywood up. We put the all unskilled labor. House, when you get into it here, costs $95,000. The wall, this particular wall on the right, which holds the swimming pool, is 8 feet wide at the base. The Sears cement mixer you see on the left and mixed all the concrete on the job. The truck on the right pulled all the material in on the job. And we've got a Sears welder and a SCI-Arc, Sears settling oxygen tanks. We formed our own steel, built our own walls. I engineered it. I did the interior decorating. I did the design. I did the building department routine and built it. So it was kind of an ideal situation. I was very fortunate doing it. And the clients are relatively happy about it, and I think it was an experience that was rewarding all my life. We did this, we bucketed in. I think concrete there was $28 a yard at the time. It's pretty expensive then. I think it was closer to $12 here at the time. Sacked concrete around $2.35, and here I think they were less than $1.50 at the time. We put waders on this. We bucketed the concrete in the top and fell to the bottom. We hit it with hammers. We formed our arches. There's the tanks. The walls in the whole of the pool, on one particular part there are 7 feet thick at its maximum point, and that's at a corner, so maybe across it might be 5 feet. We wanted a thick-looking solidified look for Heiau inspiration. We had rubble rock. We put that in the middle. Thought it was much cheaper at the time than put a cavity in the middle. So we got rid of a lot of our rock that way. The pool is 70 feet long. The house sits about a mile from the ocean. We made our own bender boards at that time. I eyeballed the straps that go into this beam. Bill Slatton did the welding. And we weren't quite sure. We had an idea how the form would work. We really didn't have that many details. We invented them on the job, depending upon conditions and circumstances. This particular gentleman did half the tile work. I did the other half tile work. I think there's 5,000 square feet of tile. He did the pool and the smaller tile. I did the larger tile. The project did say $45,000 in the house and $45,000 in the pool, walls, and all the landscape and everything else went on. Here we are getting the rock from the neighbors' lots. It's all sized, perfect size for working with. I didn't have to break any and just worked easily. This is got some washed concrete we made a washed concrete driveway out of the pebbles on the beach, and I really didn't know how to do that at the time. I spec'd it out, of course, and never did it, and I followed my own specs and it worked, which was fortunate. I did a cantilever dining room table, and of course Jim saw that and had to do something with it, so got a little tile out and glass and cut some shells up, and away we went. This is the plan, a skew plan, the center dome. There's 3 domes, center dome, left lower dome. The right carport. The center dome houses 2 bedrooms, kitchen, bath, living room. The lower dome, you go outside across between the pool and the pond, hit a master bedroom and the back bath. And of course, carport self-explanatory. This is the carport roof. We made our own shingles. I did a spire thing in the middle, and then of course Jim got hold of that and put stained glass in it. And there it is, looking back onto the central living room dome. This is the shell which I found after I designed the project. These are my children, and one on the left now is 17. This, of course, the pool, the tile, and the pond is to the right between the two pillars on the other side of the steps. This particular fern that the workman brought in, it's hapu fern. You put it place in the ground, and it grows that large. It was just a stump when we put it in. It grows that large in 3 months. You might go to Taliesin and you'll see a upside down LP drum bottom there that's in this fountain here. Bill Slatton did that drum at Taliesin. He did this one here, and we doubled this one, but he's a very good welder and cutter, and he had to wait until his nerves were settled before he cut those circles. Those are all cut with a torch. That's a real house. And then the wall with the penetrating wall and the fountain at the end. We held that particular rock work upside down the wall with a form, put the rock on it, put sand in between the rock, and then poured upside down so the rock held from the bottom up. I did the gate. Jim put a few things in it with it, and again, he got his hands in there. Couldn't keep his hands off anything. There's some of the stained glass. We laminated some canvas to the roof, sent away to MIT for a special process. I don't think the process is that successful in a climate with this moisture content. These are the towel bars. Jim did the towel bars, did the lavs. And some of the glass work in there is three-dimensional. Let's see, what did I do in there? The floor, the furniture. I built the furniture. I built the fireplace. And the furniture is a little bit Wrightian. The time. The house is definitely not right. Jim did the brazed metal hood on the fireplace. The detail is slag hardware, bronze hardware, lasting quality. These are space modules between the two rooms that Jim did, and this is an empty pool. And this is how the house looks around 1970. Jim had a camera that kept slipping on him, and fortunately, and these are the results. Usually work in this. This is a Palomar project that I'm working on for not a school, but I'm into a community type planning process, which I'm starting to develop. As soon as we get going, we're going to start a system of planning processes for communities for alternative systems. In a little different approach than that. It's more of a democratic approach, where a planning group will actually form and then create an organization which will actually build the process. We'll have a similar credit system as Solari's, but not exactly done the same way. It's more of a decentralized process rather than a concentrated process. It's a harmonizing with nature rather than building an anthill. This particular tree blew away about a week after we took this shot. The winds up there get about 80 miles an hour sometimes. These are shots from the site.
Where is it?
Mount Palomar, south side of Mount Palomar, about 4,500 square feet. You can see San Diego, see Mexico, you can see the ocean from there. 30 miles from the ocean, beeline. That's it. I'll answer any questions if you have anything about planning, social systems, or anything. You have anything, Raymond? Well, right now, it's taken 5 years to get this point. We build a road. We're into a structure which we have permit on. Unfortunately, we have to have permits in California, unlike Arizona, where you can get away with a little more, and we have to have seismic and calc. So we have a permit, and we're going to build a structure which eventually will be used for the facilities, or the start of the facilities, for a planning process. And the planning process is proposed to be a process whereby, let's say you would have 15 people on a planning board, and those 15 people would work in a fashion that would create a plan and acquire property through a nonprofit corporation. And through this process, we would actually build a community from the ground up, working in harmony with the natural, what? Somebody say something? Working in harmony with the natural entities. You would do an my card analysis and go through this entire process, and people in the planning group would have probably another group which could infiltrate out and in of the planning group and be members depending on the circumstances, how they set up the bylaws. We'd actually form communities this way. You're down there in that area?
Yeah, we've been going down and visiting the Rincon area.
Yeah, Rincon, right, very close. Go right through there. Right. There's 4 Indian reservations there. Yeah. Yeah, we know a lot of people there. I'm coming by way of, I've been 8 years in various planning boards, City of San Diego, community planning boards, where we work from the grassroots citizen level, and we put input to the city. We meet with the city once every 2 weeks, manager's office to planning department staff, and we actually do plans and we develop them, we write zones, and we go through the city that way. So right now we're working in Mission Beach. I was one of the first ones on the beach for height limit control. So, we've had a lot of fun. Can answer anybody else? Anything?
How do you view yourself?
How do I view myself? You mean like an individual or part of a group or part of a movement?
Well, probably you start off with certain dreams, and they might have trouble with it. And I don't know where you are now, what you're doing in relevance to the rest of society.
Can you be more specific? Is this a deposition? No. What? Can you rephrase that?
Well, all right, well, let's talk with this correct.
Okay.
Primarily what you showed this evening is rather large, complex homes for individuals, probably, even though they built them themselves, they had to have a certain amount of money for it. And now you're moving into a Palomar thing seems to be something a little different, but yet it's been on the scene for maybe I don't know how many years, 3 years, 4 years?
Well, it really hasn't started. We haven't had any groups, so to speak, yet. We really haven't got into that. But, I've been developing the idea over years, and finally we found the land, and now we're finally figuring out what we do, and once we start the momentum really rolling, we'll go. It's a matter of positioning right now.
What I'm asking, whether this is an evolution? In other words, would you probably like to get away from doing these individual
Get away from doing rich man's homes?
Right.
No, rich man's homes bring in the money so I can do what you want to do, but I'm kind of under the opinion that we all ought to be opulent. all ought to head for opulence. Rather than stripping the rich man's income to a point where he can't establish a situation where he can feed the poor man again out of his, his enterprising situation, I think we ought to lift the poor man up to the rich man's level, or at least approach it from that manner, filling the glass rather than emptying it, or whatever we want to call it. And I propose a system whereby it would develop the working man's input with the, I don't want to use the word intellectual, but the mind, let's use the word intellectual just for using it, but let's don't light on it as the final answer. But combining the work and the intellectual aspects into a different form of system which will encourage a more freedom, obviously, which is a line for every democracy or any type of system to start, but more freedom for more people. And I think that this is a very hard thing to do. Whether it's going to be successful or not depends on the people who are involved and want to do it and how much they want to participate and how it comes about. I believe in ownership. I don't think it's necessary not to own something, and I also believe in public space, and I think that the combination can work quite well. Miniaturization, that's certainly supposedly what kept certain animals on this earth during the time when they had to miniaturize in order to survive. I'm not sure if that's the answer, whether we're going to have to miniaturize human beings or not. I don't know about that. That'll come when it comes, or how it comes, or whatever happens. If we go off this earth and do something else, if that's feasible, well, that may prove that miniaturization is not necessary. Or maybe we shouldn't spend money going off the earth. Maybe we should concentrate here. I don't know. I think I think it's the nature of man to always look ahead, and I think that we should always look ahead. I don't think we should stay exactly here. Or let's say, let's don't develop a process where we're always looking for here. Let's always look ahead, and that is the process. That is the here itself, maybe. How I fit into the thing, I don't know. I don't know if I really fit or not. I don't know if I really care that much. I want to develop a process. I need people to help develop that process. Whatever people get involved in that process and however they fit, that's how they fit. Planning is not a precise thing. It's a development of people and togetherness. And I think self-identities can come out of that. I think identity and individuality is very important in that type of thing. I don't think we should look at each individual as a non-individual, as part of a community, especially because each individual has its individual contribution to a community, and the community itself, of course, to the individual. And I think they go hand in hand. There's no way they can be separate. I think there's a tendency to group without considering the individual, and I don't think that that is going to help or is even the answer to it. I don't know. What did I say?
Was that house in Hawaii, was that the last house you did?
No, that house was 1962.
So you're doing houses with this other project?
Yeah, this is why the other project's taking so slow. You try to develop a little capital from what you can do within the system as it exists. The other process wouldn't work without the system that exists. The Solari, Arcasani wouldn't exist without the system as it exists. It's a development out of that system. It's another, something has to happen. It's not going to stay like it is. Change is inevitable.
What's happening with your other houses? Are they developing beyond the 62 house?
Oh, there's different ones, yeah. The one you saw that was plaster was a later house. That was curved. The surfboard builder house, that was a later house. That was 70s. So whenever I get a chance to do something in curves, I try to grab it, because I think that that's kind of towards the primary definition of organic architecture, in a sense.
What do you think the now going price
Say that again?
Current US dollars, what do you think would be the approximate construction cost of the surfboard?
Oh, in current dollars? Oh, well, it was $140,000 at the time. Would be under 200,000, might be 180 maybe, or 160, something like that. Is that now, right now? 2,700 square feet. Very hard to do. You're working with square footage, which is incorrect, you know, and cubic footage is not exactly correct either, because if you were to take off the overhangs, it would be a cheaper house, but obviously without the overhangs, it wouldn't be what it is. You have brickwork, which is very intricate and takes a long time. You're not going to sit there and not pay somebody some money, particularly to do that brickwork, you assume. So it does cost money in the present system. You can't avoid that.
How about that project that you wanted, exploring the low-cost house?
Yeah, that's a problem. You can't walk into an area and lay on creative design in a poverty area. First of all, I find that much to my disappointment, in a sense that there's an overlying sense of conservatism, and it seems that the person who doesn't have the dollars seems to want to not be different, or tend to not want to be outstanding. To me, once the project got underway, it'd certainly be outstanding, because not only would the poverty not have anything at all but cardboard shacks, but it would be different than the ordinary manufacturer's point of view of going and putting row housing, or the typical disasters of federal government housing.
How about, did you have more resistance from the people who were going to finance the system when they looked at it, or was it from the people who
No,
more resistance from the people who
it was, first of all, you test it, and you try to find somebody that'll do it. Well, we found somebody that can do it and would do it. But at the last minute, they just backed out, because they just felt that they didn't want to feel, no matter what the cost was, they didn't want to feel like they were superior than their friends. And unfortunately, that it wasn't the type of thing that was supposed to mean that they're superior. And it was misjudged.
Did they equate it being superior?
In a sense, yeah. It's a thing that,
It wasn't weird.
no, this particular person did not consider it that way. They wanted to do it. They liked it. They really got into it, but the last minute they just couldn't handle it, you know?
Palomar experience is supposed to be a thing for everyone, for the grassroots people. Then how are you going to justify, not justify, but how are you going to make it come into effect if you have that aversion or that kind of hesitation?
Well, you see, we were talking about one economic level then. Now, if we can get all economic levels together, can you imagine the communication and the breaking of social ties to something which is, let's say, they want to get rid of really, but couldn't do it unless they got in that situation. So if you get a new area, a new experience, and get them away from their environment where they recognize things, maybe we can create something which might be universal to the whole concept of trying to get away from that type of thing.
It seems to me that you're saying it's extremely difficult to do creative design, that kind of terrestrial design, problem isn't so much that it's difficult to do creative design, but the design must be created in its response to the needs of the particular people that it's being built for.
That's correct.
And I question whether the form that you chose could have produced an architecture which would have been comfortable for the people that live in the area that you described. Maybe the problem is that the architecture has to be creative while expressing the history and the culture and the living patterns of the people that it's built around.
Yeah, this.
And they can give you a different kind of response.
You see, the problem is that that architecture and planning is a development. And on the short span, you're right, on the short span and walking into the area, that is part of the problem. You can't walk into an area blind and get somebody to try to do something, get it going. We were going on the basis here that if we could get somebody going on something, then a development would come out of the process of people working on and developing something else from that. Whatever it is, we don't know. But when you're coming in raw, you just can't do that. It's very difficult. You have to develop it. That's why I suggest the planning group way. I suggest that is the only and best method in which a development can occur, in which you're talking about, and getting diversified people in there and coming up with something new, not based on a particular pattern of historical significance, which is all right in itself, but something which would be innovative and meaning to the concept of a group participation of those particular people that got involved in it. Those people would actually create the plan themselves and do it themselves. And that's why the planning process is very important, because it's a type process which takes time. You can't do it overnight. You can't design some whimsical thing, throw it out, and have a person pick it up and expect him to believe it and make it meaningful. If he doesn't participate in the creation of that entity, then he doesn't understand it and will not go along with it. So in order to get the new design, in order to get the innovative concepts as a function of nature and man, which they are not now, and they are not necessarily when a historical or cultural situation comes about, because it's distorted anyway and it's time lapse, then we have to start from the ground up with a totally new situation, with people totally new involved, and work it very, very carefully. Did I say something?
Well, I think I agree with you about 99%. I think part of that reading out people's history and culture is wrong. I think it's one of our biggest problems in this country, that we've left out our history and our culture, and we wind up with things that are very cold and unreal.
Well, you don't.
Maybe one of the things that
You don't leave it out, but you don't rely on it for new answers. You know what I mean? You try to, whatever happened in history, it happened because, not so much, well, some of it happened because of history before that, and before that, and before that, and before that. That's fine, but I think that we can go back to where it all started in the beginning, which is where we supposedly all were born from. And if we can analyze that directly, then we can have a direct route, then getting some nostalgia in there, which might have tainted the realities of really trying to function with something in the first place. Anybody else that I can...
When you were talking about this thing with common audience, you want to have a group, sort of a group design or a group interaction on the design. It seems to me contradictory to what you've been doing so far. I mean, all along you've sort of been working as an individual designer with a person, Hubbell, who is another individual, and you two happen to get along. And maybe some comments thrown in by the foreman and the other workers, but essentially it's you, maybe in conjunction with Jim. And how do you reconcile this with having a group of people?
Okay, I've come down the road in two ways here. I make my living from working with people on an individual basis building their house, whether some of them are fairly well off, some of them are middle class. I didn't show too many middle class houses because it seems to be in this system, if you get a little bit more money, you're able to do a little bit more. However, just because you have more money doesn't mean you'll be able to do anything either, because there's a lot of people with a lot of houses that I think are just glorified tracts or whatever. I also into the planning thing on the side. That's free. I spent a lot of time on that. Now, that's 8 years of experience. With that and the other, we combine them, and then we come up and discover that you cannot do the proper kind of planning with nature in mind in cities which are already existing. There's no way you can do it but put the Band-Aid on it. Not that the Band-Aid isn't important. I've been doing that, enough of it. But I think to really understand the whole situation, I think we ought to work from the ground up, literally from the ground up. And that's what I'm proposing. It's not a new way of thinking.
But my question was that all of the radical ideas, I don't know about the planning, but the buildings, your actual stuff is all you. You know, the client, whoever it is, hired you to do the design.
Well, in a sense, they participate.
It's not 5 guys and you sat around.
Oh, no.
Another guy does the structure,
No.
another guy does the administration. Yeah, I mean, you're an individual and this stuff is
Right.
work.
Right.
You're gonna get together with a group,
Okay.
and a group designer can crap it up, and it usually does in the past.
Well, yeah, the committee routine, I know what you mean. That is going to be one of the interesting problems we're going to have to solve. In every group, and no way am I going to be chairman of the group, in every group, you have usually 1 or 2 individuals in that group which usually seem to come out and are the people which more or less the rest of the group rely